What's up, guys? Someone said that life is not long enough for chess, but that's the fault of life, not of our favorite game, chess. Well, I'm about to show you one very interesting, spectacular, and highly surprising line for black. I'm not gonna tell you immediately what is it all about, but why did I come up with this quote in the beginning of this video? Because you cannot even imagine how many new variations and openings and names we're about to see in the future on this channel. So just fasten your seat belts and let's just enjoy. In today's video, I just want to show you Horsefly defense. So what is it all about? Believe it or not, bird opening. From's Gambit, the one that I covered here for black after e5, got one of the most popular videos that I ever made. And I said to myself, okay, that's From's Gambit. Recently, I spoke to one of my students, Adam from Scotland. He played the European Team Championship and asked me, Maya, do you have anything interesting apart from From defense to be a little bit more correct against f4? When I showed him the first move, he first started laughing and couldn't believe that I was serious. And guess what? It's a horsefly defense, knight h6. Well, I did some examination about this one, and first of all, I have to tell you that good players have almost perfect score with the black pieces. And there are some very nice ideas for black after knight h6. Can you imagine? You develop your knight on the edge of the board and you even score well, and white even has problems with it. So after f4, knight h6, they have literally two good, reliable, and logical approaches for white. One is with g3, another one is with knight f3. Both of these approaches are going to transpose into the same system. But what happens if they just play, for example, logical e4? Like your knight is on the edge of the board. Now you go with the good version of the Scandinavian or some similar g6 systems where you have good control of the light squares. So what's happening? In the case of e takes d5, what kind of Scandinavian is this? They have an additional f4. We have the knight on h6. Certainly, having the knight on h6 that could come on f5 or g4 should be better than having the pawn on e4 that weakens the dark squares and creates a weak king on e1. On the other hand, if they play knight f3, you just play g6, queen goes on a5, and I spent some time analyzing these positions. For example, top engines prefer black. The thing is, you want to play bishop g7 short castle. You want to play bishop g4 followed by bishop takes f3 and c6, or you want to play knight f5, controlling the center and the d4 square afterward. If they try to go with some crazy before, you just take even on f4, and I'm willing to play against any one position where I'm up 2 pawns. If they play first knight c3, you can consider not only queen a5 with the same idea, knight f3, g6, b4, and queen f4, but you can also come up with queen e6 check. And when they go with bishop e2 to play g6, knight f3, bishop g7, castles, castles, and if they play d4, rook d8. I put all my pieces, bishop on g7, rook on d8, queen may go on b6, but most importantly, knight from that stupid h6 square may go on f5 and do the attack. I like this approach, and I believe they could have lots of problems with this. On the other hand, if they play e5, you just play c5. That's not the only move. I also like bishop g4, and after bishop e2, Grandmaster Nabati from Israel played very nice one with e6. And now you can take on g4 because of queen h4, queen g4, and once again, turns out that you even take advantage of having a good knight on h6, or having that knight on h6 can be useful for you in this case. So when they go with h3 and g4, looks like the knight is limited. And it's not that it looks like, it is limited, but now you just go with f6, bring your knight back to f7, and get a very, very nice game against the white center. On top of all that, after e5, you can play c5, knight f3, and here you go knight c6. All you want to do here, you just play a good version of the advanced French or Caracan positions with the possibility to do something with a light square bishop. And once again, you can even take advantage of having the knight on c6, on h6, sorry, since it's going to go on f5 afterwards. c3, bishop g4, you just get rid of that knight, play e6. And in a couple of my blitz games in the past, a couple of guys tried to play g4 and to limit this knight. Yes, it does look weak. I do agree with you. But I just go with this fascinating knight g8 retreat. What is so special? I want to go with h5, and once again, either knight h6 or knight e7 and knight f5 afterwards if I force you to play any g5 at any moment. Very nice one, and e4 simply doesn't seem to be working against this line. Apart from e4, they can go with b3. That's one of the original attentions of the Horsefly defense, because b3, even though it looks very nice, very logical, and that it, for the time being, stops at g6 because of bishop g2, believe it or not, we just go with e5. I like this gambit. Reminds me of the From's gambit. And once again, we got a constant question. Is it better to have additional b3 or knight h6? Like in From's defense. I believe that we can, since the knight on h6 stands around the king on e1, we can take advantage of this knight somehow on the king side into the attack. Well, you absolutely have no chances to benefit from any b3 afterwards. After f takes d6. I like this gambit, looks nice. And for example, if you take bishop d6, you threaten mate into queen h4, knight f3, knight g4. Once again, we see like a great benefit of the knight on h6. We're going to call it Horsefly piece. And you just threaten knight h2, rook h2, bishop g3 mate, or knight h2, followed by some queen h4 mating patterns. And after g3, I remember when I played a blitz game like this, h5, I demolished some IM. So you just play h5 followed by h4, bishop b2, bishop g7, you just take here, and knight f2, go home, baby. Learn better Horsefly defense by black. Another thing is, instead of this, they can go bishop b2, you just don't care. You never take on e5, you actually carry on developing your pieces. Finally, I know for bishop a3, you take on e5, they take, you take by rook, looks weird. You play knight c6, and once they want to go with this bishop b5, which I very much hate, like in some Vienna or e4, e5 positions, you just play a6, you prevent that knight, bishop b5, and they have lots of problems with this original setup. How should you play? Probably bishop e6, followed by queen d7 and long castle with much better game for black. Then there is a possibility with c4. Quite an interesting fact. Vashila Graf played on internet game against Vlad Kovalev, and he lost the game. MVL lost with white pieces. Kovalev played d6, knight f3, and d5. A logical question is, in what kind of English you have f4 being played and knight on h6? And once again, and that constant question, and you know, like you've been probably wondering, is it better to have f4 or knight on h6? I believe knight on h6. So if a3, c5, he takes. Bashir went for knight c3, knight c6, and he had to play bishop b5, in which case d4 just gives black a very nice game. He played queen b3, and in 7 moves with white pieces, he was lost after d4. It's already -1 according to Top Engine, so you don't even have to check this one. That actually means that they have to go, instead of all these variations, with knight f3 and g3. It's the part of the same system. And now you might say, so what is this? So nothing. This is like the Dutch defense where with the white pieces, where your knight goes knight h3, knight f4. And now you can just get a little bit better ideas about these systems and not to think of this variation anymore that bad. After you play d5, they have lots of opportunities here. I believe they can go g3, they can go d3, they can go b3. Let's go with c3. c3 leads nowhere. You just go g6, you just go knight f5, you just go knight c6. I like this approach by black, because at some point you'd like to break with e5, bishop g7, short castle e5. In this game, Henrik Danielson, one of the best bird players in the history of chess, played e4, black captured, exchanged these pieces, and now once again we take advantage of this knight being on h6, afterwards on f5, going after the pawn e4, after e5, bishop g4, goes back there and gets a fantastic game. Here king is safer, you want to play rook d8 or long castles, you want to play h5 with full control of the dark squares. White can never play h3 because g3 is hanging. Danielson lost the Richter. If b3, you just play bishop g4. Yes, you can play knight f5 with a normal game, but I like this bishop g4, playing some sort of Trompovsky idea, like taking on f3. So when they play e3, you just bring your knight on f5 and you play already stupid knight h4. I'm saying stupid because, can you believe it, after knight h4, you're worse because you can't play bishop e2 due to knight g2. So after h3, once again, shocking move, you just play knight g3, and this knight is going after the rook. So when they play rook g1, you play bishop h5. Pretty weird position for white. We just play with these two pieces. They have lots of problems with development. Worst case scenario for us. I say worst case scenario, and I actually like it so much. King f2 to get rid of this knight. You give check. You go f6, and when they play g4, hide your bishop. You know what? I broke your king side. I'm going to play h5. At some point, I want to play knight c6, queen d7 or d6 and d5, long castles, and black looks great. And finally, if they play d3, that's one of the crucial strategic ideas of the Horsefly defense. In these positions, you just want to play d4. I like this move a lot. Yes, you can play knight f5 once again. You're not afraid of any for d takes, queen d1, and knight d6. But you also want to go with this d4, controlling the dark squares, and afterwards just going with some knight f5, knight e3 ideas. At the same time, you want to play c5, knight c6. If they challenge you with e4, you take bishop e3, take advantage of the knight. We always like this horsefly knight, and play g6 followed by bishop g7. Great game. I very much like the fact that the knight on f5 controls the dark squares and at the same time keeps constant pressure against the d4 pawn. Finally, if they play c3, you just play c5. They go g3, knight f5, knight a3, knight c6, knight c2. They want to undermine our pawn chain, but that's not going to be the case, baby. We just go g6, play bishop g7, and get a full control and get a hold of the d4 square. e4, d takes, bishop g7. When they take the pawn, you just go rook b8. You don't give them, after b6, 95 threats. And when they take, you play b6. We have a beautiful game, great development, and they have lots of problems with our powerful bishops on a6 and g7. That's why after d5, I'm of opinion that they have to go with g3. You play g6, bishop g2, bishop g7, and they go short castle. Vlad Kovalev played one more game in this opening, apart from beating MVL. His opponent played d3 in Belarus 2017. He played d4, once again getting control of the dark squares. Knight b2 and played knight f5. By the way, you now threaten very nasty knight a3 to trap the queen. So after knight e4, played h5 to get rid of any g4 threats by white. c3 undermining this, and played knight c6. I wish I could play c5 by black, but knight c6 is good enough as long as we keep controlling the dark squares. h3, knight f5, e3, e5, taking there, going after the bishop, and he was much better, almost winning out of the opening once again after 14 moves. But at least this guy lasted 14 moves. MVL was lost after 7 with white. And finally, If d5, g3, g6, bishop g2, and they go castle. That's the most logical thing. You just go a short castle and they go d3. You always go with the same approach. Here I'm going to give you 3 alternatives. So I'll give you the main one, d4, which is so classic with control of the dark squares, and that's going to be the main one. What happens after c6? Watch this out. This could be a good trick for blitz. You want to play queen b6 check, and then to take by bishop on g7, pawn on b2. They got to go king h1. You once again go with the same, and when they play c3, boom, you play knight e7. I want to break with e5, but I also want to bring my knight from a famous h6 on g4 and recapture by knight from probably g4 on e5. That is great. Second plan, an alternative could be b6, e4, we take, and go with this bishop on a6. We get a good endgame after knight c6, and this reminds me of some double fianchetto against the King's Indian with the white pieces. And finally, we can go with d4, which is my favorite. And the thing is, they can never play any e4 here because we take. They do not have time to take because b2 is hanging by the bishop on g7, by the way, for all of you who are just missing this. And the thing is, they gotta go c3. We don't have any more threats on g7. They do want to get a pawn back, but now we play bishop f5. We keep provoking some weaknesses in the white's camp. d4, not a big deal, baby. I'm just gonna break your center, right? Look at this powerful bishops. You play knight e5 to threaten on b7. Who cares about the exchange? I just play c takes d4, knight e7, and don't you dare to take this rook. I'm gonna have like a powerful light squares, and sooner or later you'll have to shake my hand. So knight bd2, you just go c5, knight c6, and there we go. A typical way of trading the Dutch defense reversed with e5, and once they take, you play knight g4 and get by knight on e5. So after d4, they gotta go c3, you play c5, and they have to go with e4. In the case of queen e1, which is a typical Dutch move because they want to break with e4, you play knight c6, knight a3, always rook b8. It's aimed against knight c4 because you want to face it with b5. Bishop d2, b5, rook c1, rook e8. Guys, I don't want to play e5. I want to go doing some x-rays against the queen on e1. I want to play bishop d6, bishop d5, opposing the bishop on g2. Nice position for black. And finally, if they go e4, you, of course, have to capture. By the way, on question, can I play knight c6 followed by some e5 and knight g4? Yes, you can. On h3, now on e5, f takes e5, you want to have knight g4? Yes, but I have b6, I have f6, placing my knight on f7. And here, on any knight c4, b5, I want to play with this, and amazing game. Or any knight c2, I just go b takes, d takes, bishop a6, and queen d7, followed by rook to d8. What a beautiful end, you have to admit. Very simple game for black. And finally, if this bishop e3, queen c7. Queen c7 because pawn on c5 was hanging, as well as opening up d8 square for the rook, and having both bishop f, knight f5, or bishop g, and knight g4. This is nice. So in game Gilles Moussard against Benjamin Bach played on the web 2020, Moussard, who's 2600, played knight a3, knight g4, going after the bishop. This guy played queen e2, knight e3, queen e3, e6. I'm absolutely fine with black's game after knight a5. Okay, he looks like he opens up this bishop, but then you just play bishop d7. We want to play like rook d8, bishop e8, knight d7 as one of the plans, or immediate bishop d7 followed by bishop e8 followed by knight d7, kicking and trying to removing the knight away from e5. And finally, if they play h3, to stop all these ideas with the bishop g4, knight g4, not the end of the world. Knight f5, we just threaten the bishop and the pawn. They have to go bishop f2, and you go e6. It's nice. It's nice, similar to the previous game. Knight e7, you're not allowing any knight e5 at any point. And furthermore, you just have control of this and of the knight f6 square. You want to play knight f6 or If they play d4, exactly, you want to play a6 to avoid this knight b5 idea, but you also want to play b5, bishop b7 yourself. If they take, you take by knight. You now threaten knight e4, going after the bishop and the g3 pawn, and generally speaking, controls dark squares. Queen e2, b6, knight c4, bishop b7, g4, and Grunberg from Romania, international master, who's also pretty good bird player and Dutch player, lost here playing white against Grandmaster Dautov. Once again, they had lots of problems. I believe that this video is going to help you a lot. Hope that you like the surprise. Like, can you guess what the Horsefly defense is? And I'm pretty sure, once again, that you're going to have lots of nice games and wins using this system against the bird defense. Enjoy and keep watching the content. Thank you so much.